Hello everyone, it's Jordanplayspickle back at it again with another review video, and we're going to be reviewing a paddle that I've really liked over the last bit, and that is the Hurache X Control Plus by 1160. I had to make sure I said that name correctly because it's the longest, most convoluted name for a paddle I've ever heard. But this paddle, while it is not drastically different than what I've used, really does blend a lot of things I like together. So let's get into the review. If you've watched this channel for a while, you know that one of the things I love to do is compare this paddle to other paddles that are similar in shape and size. So when we talk about the hybrid shape of a paddle, there's one huge competitor in the market, and that is of course the double black diamond by 60. When we look at these paddles, one thing I want you guys to note is that while this may look like a hybrid paddle, it is technically an elongated paddle because of its size. And you can kind of see that as it dwarfs the 60 in total length. If we were to compare it to another paddle on the market, the Vatic Prism Flash, you see the same thing where this paddle is much taller than it. The reason for the difference in size is this amazing 6-inch handle that they included on the Hurache X Control Plus, giving the total paddle length 16.5 inches. So while this may look like a hybrid shaped paddle, which it is, it still technically falls into the elongated category. Another way that this paddle is unique is the way they made this face on the paddle. And they did something that I haven't seen on any other paddles, and that is they sandwiched fiberglass between two sheets of carbon fiber. So to recap, we have a carbon fiber face, we have a fiberglass face on top of that, and then we have another carbon fiber face on top of that as well. I believe the fiberglass contributes to more pop, and so while this is a really quick in the hands paddle, you still get extra pop that you wouldn't get with similar hybrid shaped control paddles. As for total weight, mine came in at 8.3 ounces, which is a little higher than the ones that were advertised, but it still is very acceptable for me. For some of you, this might seem like a heavy paddle, and all I gotta say is get good. I'm just kidding, but it is something to keep in mind that at 8.3 ounces, this is not a paddle necessarily for everyone and could be fatiguing for some of you at the line. I do want to comment on the paddle's construction really quickly. It feels very well constructed all around, and I really like the colors that they chose for this paddle. I think the hints of blue and green, this is an overgrip I chose. The hints of blue and green that they chose really work well together, and especially compared to the other paddles, I think this is by far their best looking paddle. Underneath this overgrip is actually a gray grip that was on the paddle initially, and not only does it look good, but it actually felt great as well. So this is a paddle that I feel really is great out of the box. Overall, I thought that build quality was great on this paddle, but I did have one issue, and it might be just me, so I just want to caveat that first. But the badge on the bottom of my paddle did fall off. I'm not sure when it did or where it did, but I noticed that when I was filming some B-roll today. So that might be something to keep in mind. You might want to stick it on a little bit more and just make sure that that's secured before you begin playing with it. Another great thing about this paddle is the price is not ridiculous. As we see in this market of gearboxes and Selkirks, it's not uncommon for paddles with new technology to go over the $200 range. But this paddle actually comes in at $140, and you can use the code JORDANIRWIN to get that down 10% as well. So now that we've talked a little bit about an overview of the paddle, let's talk about how I actually think this plays. The first thing I want to say is that this paddle is pretty light on the hands. We mentioned it's a heavier weight, but it still comes in at a swing weight of 117, which I think is reasonable considering the long handle and the elongated shape of the paddle. We mentioned the fiberglass sandwiched by the carbon fiber before, and let's talk about how that contributes to power. For this paddle, I would give it a power of about 8.5. That is in keeping in mind the incredible power of paddles on the market today. If this had come out 6 months ago, this might be the most powerful paddle on the market, but the market has been changing like crazy. Technology has been moving forward, so I put the power at 8.5. For me, this was a significant boost in power from my double black diamond, and I would put it as the third most powerful paddle I own, putting it behind the Engage series as well as the Gearbox Pro Power Elongated. I would be lying if I said this was my favorite paddle right out of the box, because it definitely has a little bit of getting used to. You have more power, you have more pop, and you also have a longer handle. So a lot of the small flicks of your wrist might contribute to larger errors when you first start using the paddle. but I think it's worth it because this power is amazing to have and this paddle plays great overall. Let's talk about spin next. For spin, I gave this a 9 out of 10, which I've been giving a lot of paddles, but I really do feel like this is top tier spin. It's, I believe, just under the 2000 RPM range, and it felt really good. I will say that it took a little bit more of time to dial in because you have more power and you have more pop. So because of the unique aspects of this paddle, it wasn't necessarily easy right away, but once I got it working, spin was great and I was having a good time generating it. The one thing I really liked about this paddle is pop. I gave the pop an 8.5 and I feel that it is great for counters, it is great for generating power right at the line, and it really keeps you in for hand battles and other fast interactions in pickleball. The long handle takes a little bit of adjusting, especially when you are bringing the paddle up to your body to try to block or counter something, but it is worth getting used to because I feel the power and pop are just so unique to this. While this paddle is called the Control Plus, I would really call it more of a power paddle when it comes to all court designed paddles. It really does play like a more powerful double black diamond. It has a really good feel in the hand, but it definitely has a lot of power that is generated when you need it. As far as feeling of this paddle, I felt that it was really good. I mentioned the handle a few times, and yes, that's something to get used to, but for me, I really like the access it provides having a longer handle. You can use a lot more two-handed backhand, you can generate a really big serve, and it really gives you a lot of options as a player. The sweet spot is another benefit of this paddle. I think it comes in at a 6.3 twist weight, and the sweet spot felt even a little bigger than this number would indicate. I wouldn't say it's the best ever, I still give that to the Vatic Pro, but this is a really good sweet spot that I don't think you're gonna complain about at all. We mentioned it before, but one unique aspect of playing with this paddle was just that for me, it jumps up a lot more than some of the paddles I had used. So getting used to the power and pop did take some adjusting, but once I got used to that as well as the long handle, it really was a fun time. I was able to keep up in hands battles, I was able to generate good drives, and I was able to finally get my drops down by the end of some of my play sessions near the beginning. After getting used to the paddle, I really enjoyed it, and I think it's one of my favorite paddles, and I'm considering changing from the gearbox to this paddle as my daily driver. When it comes to price, I really do think this is kind of an insane value, to be honest. It comes in just above even the Vatic Prism, and it plays, in my opinion, as good as paddles that are almost twice its cost. Even without the discount at $140, it's a great deal, but getting that extra 10% off with the code JORDANIRWIN makes it even better of a deal. I will say, if you do think about purchasing this paddle, make sure you buy the right one, because there is another paddle just called the Hurache, which does not have the thermoformed build and is not the Control Plus that we have reviewed today. So if you buy this paddle, just make sure you get the right one. For me, this paddle really does stand out as unique because there's not a lot of power-oriented paddles in this price point. Another paddle I do like in this price point is the Bread and Butter Loco, but if you see my review of that, that is definitely a more control-oriented paddle that has reasonable power, but not nearly as much as the Hurache X Control Plus. I think even when you compare it to the Vatic Prism Flash, the amount of increased value that you get with this paddle at $30 more is so good that I would say this might even be the best value that you can get currently on the market. One other thing I forgot to mention early in the review is that it also comes with a paddle cover, which you don't always get these days. So really, between the good grip of the paddle and the paddle cover and the great weight out of the box, this might be one of your best out of the box experiences with a paddle. All in all, I think this paddle is great. I think it fits a lot of different gameplays. I will say, if you are sensitive towards paddle weight, this might not be the one for you. And if you don't feel like you would use or appreciate the longer handle, this might be one to be avoided as well. But outside of those two caveats, I really think that the Hurache X Control Plus is a paddle that most of you will like, a paddle that will improve a lot of your game, and it will give you the power and pop that you wouldn't get from a similar paddle, but also gives you a lot of those amazing control aspects that you get from a paddle of this shape. Being that it's the only hybrid elongated I know, it definitely makes it unique as well and will be a conversation starter for sure. That is all I gotta say. I like this paddle a lot. I'm gonna keep playing with it. Hopefully I will get some gameplay footage for you guys to see of me using this paddle as well. But it's been great reading your comments, hearing your voice, and getting to improve my videos from the feedback that all of you have given me. If you like this video, I'd appreciate a like on the video. And if you like the community, please consider subscribing. It really helps the channel and would help us out a lot. If you want to purchase the paddle, the link is in the bio, and you can also copy my code from there as well. But it's been good. God bless. Great seeing you. Enjoy.